We just want to welcome you again. If this is your first time to coming, thank you. We're so glad to have you here. And if you're coming back, thank you so much, and welcome again to you. So your illustrious facilitators today are Mary Brownell, Nicole Spalding, Abigail Foley, and myself. And one thing we're going to ask you to do that's a little bit different, we're getting to really know a lot of faces over the past few months, and we really want to be more intentional on putting names to faces and faces to states. So if you don't happen to have in your title box by your name where you're from, if you could just place it in there. And the way you do that, if you're not familiar with it, is you take those three little vertical dots, you click on those, and then you click on rename, just so it's kind of fun to watch when you're commenting where you're from, and that way we get to know you even better. Okay, yeah, so if you want to do that, that would be great. So moving to our next slide, today we'll be learning all about how a team from Georgia is using induction to improve their novice teachers' use of HLPs through the practice learning opportunities. And it's exciting to see how they are bridging that gap from educator preparation to professional development. So we'll be hearing all about that today.
So I have the pleasure of introducing two wonderful speakers that I think you're going to learn a lot from the state of Georgia. One is Winna Lowe, and she's the interim state director for special education services and supports. And the other one is Melissa Driver, who is now the interim associate dean for quality enhancement at Kennesaw State University. And today, these are the topics they're going to be covering. So if you could go to the next slide. They're going to talk about why induction of beginning teachers is important and the focus they have on practice-based learning opportunities and how they're using a very specific type of practice-based learning opportunity. And then we'll go to breakouts, and then we'll come back and discuss some of the further some of the work that they're doing. So take it away, Melissa and Winna.
Well, thank you. I guess I'll start. I'm Winna Lowe, and I'm the interim state director. And Melissa, you want to introduce yourself?
Yep. So as Mary said, the interim associate dean for quality enhancement in our College of Ed at Kennesaw State.
And it's kind of funny that we're both interim.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. But I've been interim since September in this role. And Melissa, I think yours is even more recent than that. Is that right?
Yes, interim since January. So still pretty fresh.
Well, prior to becoming interim, I was a senior program manager with the department, the special education division. And, we certainly recognize that we have a major shortage of special education teachers. In the middle of the pandemic, we had an opportunity to apply for a grant from OSEP. I mean, literally in the middle of the summer of the beginning of the pandemic is when this happened. And we had about a 6 weeks turnaround time. And I personally had just come back from some kidney surgery, and there were lots of things that were going against us at that point. But the good part that was working for us is we have a strong team, and it's really due to the CEDAR work that we've done in Georgia for many years now. I can't tell you how much having the connections that we have with our higher ed partners mean to us. And, we don't just see them once a month in our CEDAR team meeting. We actually work together. So that first pandemic summer, we got this opportunity, and Dr. Zelfine Smith-Dixon was the director at the time, and she sent the grant to me. I think about the day I came back from leave for surgery and said, I think we should apply for this. And that was a lot of the work that I was doing were the special projects, in addition to focus on post-secondary. But, the grant looked tailor-made for us. We were very poised because of our work with CEDAR and other partnerships and ready to do this grant. But I put in an all-call that afternoon to my friends through the CEDAR work, including Meg. and our Georgia colleagues and said, hey, y'all look at this. What do you think? And within minutes, I had offers, let's start meeting together. And literally we met about 2 days later. We divided up the work, not the way you want to write a grant really, but that's what we did. And everybody brought their pieces together. And within about 2 weeks, we really had the shell of a grant to move forward. And then Dr. Emily Grable from our Center for Leadership on Disability kind of took it from that point and put it all together for us. So we applied for Part B and C, which was ambitious, but our Part C is not under the Department of Education, it's the Department of Public Health. And of course, again, like we said, we were in the middle of a pandemic. So Department of Public Health said, we would love to apply for this grant, but we do not have the capacity at this point. So we applied on their behalf because we could as a state agency. And we were the only state awarded both Part B and C at that time. Of course, it was $500,000 per year for 5 years. But this was a way for us to begin some work in an induction program for our teachers. Our grant is a little more comprehensive than just induction, but as we say, goal 1 is the induction work with teachers. And if we can move forward, and literally before that, about 6 months before, I had reached out to Dr. Melissa Driver and Dr. Kate Zimmer with Kennesaw State University, one of our very large universities, part of the Regent system in Georgia. Again, both I knew through our CEDAR work, and said, I want to explore what your Avatar Lab can do for teacher retention. And Meg, who of course is our state contact for Georgia through CEDAR, said, we'll give you some money to see about piloting that. So we already had some things in motion about how could we use it through our regional network to work on some induction work with the Avatar Lab. So that was kind of already spinning our wheels there. And what we came up with, of course, for the teacher induction is we wanted to develop high quality professional learning that would be meaningful to our induction level teachers. And we decided to partner with the Center on Great Teachers and Leaders to make sure that we had nationally vetted curriculum and all based around high leverage practices, because again, this is work that we had been doing on high leverage practices since 2018 due to our support through CEDAR. We already had a lot of resources. You'll see the HLP Hub in a few minutes. Again, that was absolutely a joint venture between our higher ed partners and our Department of Education. But basically, we asked for a traditional professional learning approach, but then followed up for application through the Avatar Lab, which you will hear more about from Melissa and how that has really become a unique point. And our teachers have enjoyed doing that. So again, we were working with any teacher in Georgia that wanted to participate. So we offered it to every district. If in Georgia, we don't do things little, we go big all at once. No such thing as starting out with 3 or 4 districts. We wanted to make it available to all districts. So through our regional network that we call Georgia Learning Resource System, or GLRS, we were able to train the GLRS directors to redeliver the content and to facilitate the Avatar Labs across the entire state in regional pods, 18 different pods across the state. Beyond that work, we were able to then add some additional funding that came out of stimulus money to add a coaching component because there was not enough out of the original grant. So we really added $1.8 million to that for this past year in a coaching component, and again, worked on that. So mixed reality simulation, or the Avatar Lab, is a key component, as well as the induction. And you can read the various aspects of the grant, but we'll move forward to the next slide for the sake of time. So we have 18 regional units. We have 10 additional training series that were district specific. So we have some very large districts in the state that said, I want to participate, but I want somebody from my district to become a trainer. And we will redeliver it within our district. We'll follow your plan, but we will redeliver it ourselves rather than trying to work through our GLRS. I mean, as many of you know, some of our metro districts are larger populations than some states have. Our largest district in the state has 180,000 students. the second largest, has about 120,000 students. And so they have partnered with us to redeliver the training. And of course, they've got a lot more liberty to say, we're pulling you out at this time and doing this than we do when you're working across many districts within a region. So 94 districts out of 215 actually have bought into this plan this year. And we're supporting just right under 500 teachers participating. We originally projected to have more than that, but I think that's a really great number for the first year of implementation. And, you know, certainly I think had we not had the challenges that we have with severe teacher shortages due to the pandemic and stress that teachers are feeling, and some superintendents have said nobody's doing anything professional learning wise this year, I think you'll see it continue to grow. And we're already hearing from many, many districts saying, I want in on this coming year. And of course, we're going to certainly honor that request.
So when I have a quick question, do you then, when a district says, hey, we want to use your program, do they also have their own that is parallel to that, or do they ditch their own and just go with your training?
No, not necessarily. They, you know, our training is based around high leverage practices, and we really focused on instruction first. So the first 6 months are on instruction, whether you started the training in July when the teachers first came in, or you waited till September. Ours is about instruction. We're still anticipating that local districts are going to have their boot camps or whatever they call them to take, especially alternative cert teachers that they're having to use so frequently now, to learn how to understand the basics of an IEP. To be honest with you, and we'll get into that later, we've had a lot of feedback about that. You know, why didn't you teach the teachers how to write an IEP? Why didn't you do this and that and the other first? The IEP portion, again, aligned to the HLPs, comes after the holiday break. So the last half of the year, that was intentional. That was through the planning with Center on Great Teachers and Leaders, through CEDAR, again, with our university professors that were advising and supporting this work, because we aren't expecting to give them the nuts and the bolts. We wanted them to have instructional strategies in the classroom to work with, and then learn about the IEP after they've had their feet wet and could really understand the complexity that this is not just, this is what the present level of performance, and this is an example of what you can write, but really understand that's the whole basis for your IEP by that time. So I don't think we've landed, have we, Melissa, on a plan about next year yet, because we'll
No.
train the trainer sessions. It's a divided camp.
It is.
Very divided camp on that, because we're not trying to replace these practices they've already had in place, but we are trying to have a consistent program that any induction level teacher in the state could participate in, that it is intense, but it's not so time intense that it would preclude them from participating, but we'd have a consistent message going out to all our teachers and support of coaching follow-up. And of course, our hope is that when we match the certificate numbers from this year against next fall, that we're going to see that we're retaining teachers that have been through this program, hopefully at a higher rate than, and try to start to figure out, you know, is this making a difference? And it's kind of an interesting journey. So we'll let you know. We have constant updates. Ready for the next slide? So we have a lot of teachers in the program, 24%, that are TAP program teachers, as we call them in Georgia. So teacher alternative preparation program teachers. And about half of the TAP candidates are typically special education teachers in the state. But one of the driving forces behind this is our regional education service areas, which are companions to our special ed GLRS. They really run the TAP programs across the state. And they said, we get in a lot of TAP candidates, and about half are always going for special education because that's where the jobs and the shortages are. But by the time that we look at where they are 2 years later, they have flipped out of special ed and gone to a general ed position because it's too much work with the regulations, the paperwork, things like that. So it's a pity that we're making an investment and we're losing people to general ed side. So we're hopeful that this also makes a difference. If you're a TAP candidate and you're a general ed teacher, because it's based around HLPs, it's great for them too. So it's not a problem. Even the portions of the IEP, they learn how their role fits into that and what that all really means. And of course, with students with disabilities in their classroom to such a high level that they've got to be experts in this just as well as our specialists do.
Absolutely.
Okay. Next slide will be fine. And so this just tells you our teacher demographic. The majority of our teachers participating are elementary level, and almost 2/3 of the participating teachers are in their first year of teaching special education. So our districts, there's certainly an official induction level certificate and there's an induction level status, but we have a lot of districts that said, I've got a veteran middle grades teacher that's asking to become a special ed teacher. I want her to participate in this because this will be a good induction for them too. So that's why you see some numbers that are beyond just, truly first year teachers. But the district could decide about that. Okay. Our next slide, please. And so I'll let Melissa talk a little bit about the training schedule and how this masterpiece came together. And Melissa and Kate have given so much of their time and investment in working with Center on Great Teachers and Leaders. I just cannot tell you how gracious they've been.
Oh, thank you, Winna. And it's so as Winna mentioned, we kind of started this in like a small pilot before the grant opportunity came about, because Winna approached us and was like, I want to get what you're doing in teacher prep with mixed reality into induction. This is a need for us. So we kind of piloted a modified version of what you see on the screen prior to writing the grant. So that way, or we were in the process of piloting it as we were pursuing the grant. So we had a lot that we learned from that, which fed into the model that you see here. So we really wanted to focus around this train the trainer idea, where we had a week-long training in the summer, which is that top left box. And this was in collaboration with the Center for Great Teachers and Leaders, where they really focused in on the HLP content. And then Kate and I really focused in on how do you use mixed reality to provide purposeful practice. So this is where that practice-based learning really started to come in and where the rubber met the road. So once we kind of gave the trainers the information on what to teach related to HLPs, and there was definitely like some range in trainers' understanding of high leverage practices too. So it was good to just kind of get a common language and a common understanding to start there. Many of them were unfamiliar with mixed reality simulation, so helping them see what that is and how they could use it and what it looked like. They all practiced, well, most of them practiced during the summer actually teaching a lesson in the simulation, which was really good for them and very purposeful, because we were like, you're gonna ask your candidates, your people to do this, like you got to do it too. And we want you to model this for them too in the training, which really helped. And then we moved into the academic year. So as you can kind of see, well, I'll tell you the circle flow chart first. So the idea, and we presented this to them knowing that everyone's circumstances are different. We still didn't even know what schools would be like at this point in terms of, are they virtual? Are they in person? Are you allowed to be doing PD? So we're just going to give you the ideal of what this would look like, which would be you deliver a professional learning to your induction teachers. So maybe we're focusing on HLP 16. I deliver the HLP 16 content that the Center for Great Teachers and Leaders, that curriculum that they had helped develop using all sorts of national resources that many of you are probably familiar with, because there are a lot of them are from CEDAR, supported by CEDAR. And then from that, there would be some space in between before they do the mixed reality so that they could actually take what they learn and apply it. So again, with HLP 16, they would then ideally take what they learned, plan an explicit instruction lesson plan that either they were going to teach in an upcoming lesson, or we provided just some sample shells for them too, if it was like that was too overwhelming, and then get feedback from their trainer on that lesson plan. And then you go to the bottom circle, which is where the practice comes in. So then the idea is they got the content, They practiced applying it in their lesson planning. Now they're going to actually practice in delivery. So now they're going to go into the mixed reality simulation, which was all virtual via Zoom, and they're going to practice teaching that lesson. And they're probably going to do that in front of their peers in their same learning community. So they can get feedback, they can debrief, maybe get some additional follow-up coaching, and then go forth and hopefully take that skill that they just practiced and apply it in their actual teaching field. And then the last piece of this little cycle is our community of practice, because we also wanted to, like, this is definitely not a one-shot learning piece for the trainers, right? So we wanted to create this true community where we have these trainers all across our state, representing pretty much all of our geographic regions, who are all supporting induction teachers on the same HLPs at the same time. So each month we come together for 2 hours, and we, maybe preview what's coming up for the next HLP. We help problem solve what the issues have been. This has been really helpful in the times of COVID, because some teachers might say, our teachers aren't getting released. How are you getting around this? Are we doing any virtual supplements? How are you getting around this? I'm having trouble with this aspect of the mixed reality technology, to really help not only problem solve, but then also share those examples of what's going really well, and continue to build that capacity and leadership from within the community, so that, we've taken it from like a few people know how to do this to now all these trainers know how to do this. And now we're built further expanding that out to really scale up across the state. And then we go on to the next month where they do the next HLP target training. So it's just this constant cycle. And then the chart on the right, you can see, is just kind of an example of how we originally thought through, okay, this is the component, it's a great Center for Great Teachers and Leaders, or is it KSU doing the mixed reality? Who's doing the training? What is the training? And we can go to the next slide.
Hey, Melissa.
Yeah.
How did you, in the very beginning for that first part, how did you narrow your focus or pick the HLPs that you wanted to do? You might already be coming up to that.
No,
sorry.
that's a great question. So it was really a collaborative effort, honestly, we had kind of our ideas. So in the pilot program, we really only did HLP 16 and 18. So explicit instruction and engagement. And that was really just like, if we can only pick 2, we wanted to do something instructional, and we wanted to do like those core instructional ones, and then engagement, could build in a lot of assessment and behavioral HLP within that too. So that's why we started with those 2. And then we really kind of came together right when, as like a leadership team with the grant, and we're like, if we can only pick 6, these are the 6 spreading across the different areas. And then we got feedback from Meg and Cedar too, where they were like, actually, I think this should come before this one. I think we're going to start with explicit instruction, but then we said, let's actually move a welcoming environment to the first one. We got feedback even from our participants at the very beginning. So it was very much a collaborative effort. But as Winna said, we really want it, and we continue to we want IEPs earlier, but we're like, what is a good IEP meeting? You have to have strong competency in every domain of the HLPs, the assessment, collaboration, instruction, behavior, to really write a strong IEP and to like execute a strong IEP meeting. So we're like still kind of navigating that piece.
Okay.
But we did get feedback from our GLRS directors. They're masters at professional learning. Most have been in these roles for quite a while, and they certainly will bring their opinion to the table to help us adjust. But just narrowing it down to make sure that we get the focus. I did want to tell you that one of the biggest snafus we had in the training week, drama, when Melissa said, we wanted everybody to practice. Well, people started slipping around to their program manager, because we have a GLRS program manager, and saying, that's upset me very much. I cannot do this. I cannot do this in front of my peers, but yet we're asking our teachers to do it in front of our peers. So
Wow.
I'm not diminishing the anxiety that it probably did create. Not that it was a tense environment, but the other major drama. And I guess we called a called meeting, didn't we, Melissa?
We did.
Tuesday afternoon, after these were full days of training. We evaluated every day, and they tore us up one side and down the other about having to write a lesson plan. I mean, Melissa and Kate gave very, and it wasn't just our directors, like they have specialists and things. That was 75 people in training that would be deployed across the whole state to redeliver this. And they've been good as gold to get it done. You know, sometimes you got to go through anxiety and conflict to get to where you're going, but asking them to build a lesson plan to present, I believe it was on Thursday. They even had all day on Wednesday to develop it. And Melissa and Kate offered open office hours like all morning to help them. But we got comments like, I haven't built a lesson plan in 20 years. How dare you ask?
Oh my gosh.
But you know, that's a lot of truth to it.
Mhm.
But yet we're asking our teachers to, so how do you model that?
Mm-hmm.
But in addition to that, we also very disappointingly got a lot of special ed teachers do not do lesson planning. This is useless for special ed teachers to do. And I mean, it wasn't from one area, it was from multiple areas. So after we picked up our mouth off the floor, we made peace with everybody and moved forward. But honestly, it turned around. They saw the value of why they needed to do that before it was over with. Melissa, you can add to that if you'd like.
Absolutely. And I'll say this is where that partnership piece is so important, right? Because then it's great to have the state director being like, no, actually, this is important. Like we are going to do this and we are the leaders in the room for the state. So like, let's be the model for this of like what a strong lesson is. And we really did get a ton of pushback, but then it was great, which we anticipated. After they started implementing the program, they were like, man, our teachers really valued when we modeled that lesson for them in the simulator before we asked them to do it. We're like, yes, they did. I bet they did. So I feel like I'd be curious actually to see within the second year implementation, if we will get as much, I mean, from the new individuals perhaps, but now we'll have so many more people who are more comfortable with this, who maybe can be more comfortable jumping in to show them and to model. And it was good too, I think, just for them to, another reason we wanted them to do it is to like, because it can be an intimidating experience, of course, especially for novice teachers. So to like also just think through how it feels for how they plan to facilitate those induction sessions.
And understanding how their novice teachers might feel in front of them when they're getting evaluated.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is our HLP hub that Winna mentioned. We love this website. It's an ever-changing live website as we keep shifting of what will be helpful. But this really came about when we were just really trying to integrate HLPs across the state. And we wanted to create a centralized state website so that when we want to direct people to HLPs, we can say, go here. And then this will then direct them to many different resources, locally, national, like all the CEDAR website, the CEDAR videos are on here, the highleveragedpractice.org websites. So this has then again been something great for our trainers to just have, instead of being like, here's a whole page of websites you can go to, just be like one link. And then from here, you can explore and use this as needed. So if you go to the next slide, and I think I saw this question somewhere in the chat, someone was like, I bet they use the structured video analysis, and you bet correctly, which I know that was one of the sessions earlier back in December. So in that first top bubble where they get the targeted PD, that is where we try and pull practice-based learning opportunities to help them really dive deeper in the content and engage. So the structured video analysis is a great tool for that top. What is this HLP? How do you do this collaboration HLP? And so they really dove in there throughout there. The second really core practice-based learning opportunity we've been talking about is the mixed reality simulation piece, which is our avatar lab, which is what we named it at KSU. And so both of these are resources that are available and live on the CEDAR website. Mary, I think that the HLP 6 one is pretty close to getting published on the site if it's not there already. So we're about to have one for assessment, which is going to be really exciting. And so these HLP scenarios, if you click on the links they're putting on the chat, we've designed these so that they can really hopefully walk you through each step of taking this and embedding it into either a course or an induction program. And that has been really something that we've had to think through on a deep level, because for so long it was like Kate and I just, making scenarios and then like facilitating the content. And so really transferring this into so someone who is very new to mixed reality, how do they go through the full steps from start to finish. And I think I saw Jennifer Sears on the call too, and she is currently in the process of helping the Georgia Cedar team make additional HLP packets for this. So we're hoping to really build out the library of resources that we have here. So our Georgia Cedar team is pretty great. And then so let's see. So I want to show you a video of what it looks like in practice in our virtual simulated world via Zoom.
Now we are going to write some guided notes, okay? So everyone should have some notes on their desk that look like this, okay? And you're just gonna follow along, listen. We're gonna write the words on the blanks. If you miss the word, it's gonna be on the screen, so you can just look there, or if you want me to repeat it, raise your hand, I will repeat, no problem. All right, so we're gonna talk about some vocabulary words, okay? Main ideal vocabulary. All right, the topic. The topic is 1 or 2 words about what the whole text is about. 1 or 2 words. So when we were just looking at the picture, what do you guys think the topic was? Think of 1 word that the topic could be for the picture we just looked at. Raise your hand if you could tell me the topic. What do you think the topic is? Yes, Nina, for the picture.
Okay, so are you talking about the picture that you just showed us with all the different clothes?
This one, yes.
Okay, I would say that the main topic is clothes.
Yes, 1 word.
All right, you can go ahead and
Very,
pause
very
it
good.
just for the sake of
Okay,
time.
moving on. The next blank is main.
And we can head to the next slide. So you can kind of see it's not a perfect classroom. This is not
Main
exactly what
ID.
real life will look like, but it is this intermediate practice point for them to actually practice delivering content. And we have countless stories of, our teachers who have planned to do something very loosely, and then they actually get in and start trying to explain a concept and they're fumbling all over the place, or they say something different, or they're like, wait, I have to actually address the children at the same time as explaining this. And so they get to work through all of those kinks in this safe environment to hopefully give the real students a better version by the time they get it. And so you see the stars. This is really where in this training schedule that we've showed, that's really where we try and embed the practice-based pieces in that initial targeted PD, and then in the PD where they practice in the lab. And the goal is there's that work in between where they're either planning a lesson or making a meeting agenda or thinking through what they want their classroom environment to look like. But we also have been adaptable with our trainers and our teachers, knowing that they have limited time, and this year has been even more condensed than what they probably originally planned due to all the shortages that we're having across everywhere. So we've tried to help just be like, here are the resources, take them and adapt them, make them meaningful to your context. And then if you go to the next slide, we wanted to kind of show you what the IEP one looked like. And we, again, wanted this to be kind of a culminating experience for them where they're taking a lot of different HLPs and really utilizing them together. And so this is still very much in draft. We just did our February booster training where the trainers came back, and this time focused mostly on IEPs, much more content focused because many of them have been using mixed reality for the whole fall. And so we gave them a brief scenario for an IEP meeting and then a general kind of feedback rubric and resource. And then they were able to give feedback on these resources and are just starting to implement this scenario. So we're excited to get their feedback so we can kind of revise it and tweak. And then I think if you go to the next slide, I'll show you just a brief video. I think it was 156 we're going to start at. Just a really brief video of kind of what the IEP meeting looks like, because we have adult avatars in addition to students. And so to start our conversation, I'd like for us to talk about the present levels of performance, and I'd like to start with Harrison's strengths. So Ms. Reed, could you actually start us off by sharing what you see as your son's strengths, academically, socially, emotionally, behaviorally?
Yeah. Harrison is such a great kid. He, he's great at math. He's really good at home. He follows directions. He loves sports and video games. I mean, when the Braves won, he was so excited. And, you know, he does, I think, struggle with reading, but it's something that he tries really hard at. And I notice he gets a little embarrassed at times when he gets called out. But I've been doing everything that I can at home. I really have. So I'm just here really for any guidance or help.
Absolutely. And, we've really seen, just looking at the data we've been collecting over the last year, we've been
Okay, you can
communicating
go
with
ahead and
regular
pause
progress
it
reports,
there.
but, we can really
If we
see
kept
that the
going,
stuff that you would see, like, each of the different individuals, including the other two avatars, can talk and engage. So it's great. And this has been a kind of a technology advancement, I would say, with the immersion platform, where we can have multiple avatars kind of all engaging in this group meeting together. And just given how much more used to like Zoom IEP meetings that people are now, it definitely has increased the realisticness of this kind of a scenario. And then the last piece I want to touch on before I hand it back to Winna is just, so there's a lot of moving pieces in this program of who is doing what, who is creating what, who is leading what. And so that has been something really important for us to have to think through. You can see the little circle here. This is like, how are the faculty involved? I was mostly, especially for this first round, for this piece of the induction, it's mostly been faculty at Kennesaw State, but we have other faculty from other institutions working on various aspects of the grant. So really thinking through what is everyone's roles, both in terms of the creation of these materials and then also the implementation. And that is where, again, I can't say enough about how having like this be a priority at the state level, like that is where the buy-in comes in. Absolutely. Like we can as faculty create this resource or this experience, but like the vision and the partnerships, like that comes from our Department of Ed, who have been like amazing partners in this, to be able to get that many districts, that many GLRSs, that many teachers to opt into this during some very difficult times in our state. And so if you go to the next slide, this is just kind of some of the pieces that we are still, adapting and adjusting and learning from. As Winna mentioned, she was able to secure additional funding for this coaching component that we have a couple slides on, which has been a great addition to the grant that we originally wanted to do, but just didn't have the budget to do in the original proposal. Kind of shifting around that HLP schedule training based on the feedback. Again, we've been asked for IEPs over and over again, so we decided to make that our winter booster training. And then one thing that we have seen, and that I think we're going to really explore a lot more as we prepare for the summer training this go round, is just the need for more online asynchronous training resources, because trainers were starting to take the materials and then feel like they needed to adapt them and put them online because of just the time restraints on all of our teachers right now. And when teachers are sick, if they have COVID, if there was a classroom closure for COVID. And so again, just being like, well, we don't need everyone doing that. That's not where we want their time. So like, can we as the overall training team, can we take some of those resources and put them as like a small online module that can be then followed up in person? So we're in the process of thinking through that. And then Winna, do you want to talk next slide about the coaching?
Sure, and they really like the coaching, and the feedback just continues to be phenomenal. So we've had 789 coaching contacts between September and January. That's a lot. That is a lot. And, out of the nearly 500 participants, and really Lynn Holdhuddy was very good in advising us about this, to prioritize who needs coaching the most, because you can't coach all of them at one time. So let's do things well, what we can do. So they've worked, of course, in conjunction with the regional centers and the building level principals to try to decide that. So 269 individuals have actually been coached out of those 789 contacts. And 93% of the coaching contacts were with special education teachers, because again, that was what this really, the main purpose was about, even though we're impacting some others. And 49% of the contacts were less than 30 minutes, and 79% were an hour or less. So we can move to the next slide. We, of course, the big struggle is to come up with more money for this coming year. I think I've got about half of it that I believe we need rounded up. That won't be hard to do. I just, one good thing about it is a former director told me, she said, there's money out there. You just got to look for it. So, I think that's the place we are. We just got to look around, but a lot of people want to support coaching of new teachers. And, that's the good news about that. Can you go back just a second? This is the satisfaction, the relevance, if they can go back to their classroom and use something. I know that you probably are having a hard time reading under each area, but like the training's useful to me in teaching Georgia students. The training was of high quality. The training was relevant to my work. Am I overall satisfied with the training? Gain new knowledge? And am I ready to use HLPs and because of the training? And if you notice, this is results by month that have been put together, and nothing is below 90%. So we have had month after month after month of this kind of result. Of course, our project officers saying, well, that's phenomenal, but it's unrealistic. Like this is, and I've done a lot of grants in my 39 years as an educator. And usually if you have 70% or higher or in the 80s, you're just rocking it out. But to have it be that high consistently is really a testament to the need and certainly the quality that we've had with the Center on Great Teachers and Leaders. But Kate and Melissa, they're like the secret weapon. They love them and they make it relevant through that application. So we can move forward.
And then when I saw there was a question in the chat, did the coaches get paid, or was it just a part of their, like, built into their job responsibilities from the district?
No, they're being paid. Almost without exception, they have found, there's a lot of retired educators out there that they still have connections to through these regional centers. And so they're paying an hourly rate for them to come in and work anywhere from a few hours to part-time to full-time. And they could either contract or hire out of the $100,000 that went to each region that was dedicated only to coaching for this 1 year, $100,000. So, we're fortunate that we've had good support. And, the most frequent coaching focus, of course, has been on HLP 7 and 16.
Which I just want to say, that's the order we proposed first. So that is where I think the state actually supports why we want to have those HLPs before we get to the IEP components.
Oh, I'm 100% behind that. I'm fighting off all the feedback at the moment, but we'll see. I'll let the team, really decide. I'll bow to whatever is decided that we want to try. Okay, next. And that's kind of it in a nutshell. That's just goal 1. Again, we have 4 goals. Goal 2 really revolves around supporting our new directors. And we have an executive coach that was supplemented through this grant, in addition to a very comprehensive professional learning that we've been doing for years. It's one of our most popular things that we do as far as feedback goes with directors. And goal 3 is all around Part C. And then goal 4 is about trying to have a better handle on the rich data that we have. We have tons of rich data in the state, whether it's through Professional Standards Commission, the Department of Education, the Board of Regents, but nobody can get it from each other. So Melissa can't get our information without an act of Congress. We can't get to her. So how do we expect our higher ed partners to partner with us if they don't even know who we're retaining, where our needs are? So it's a lofty goal, but we're trying to better ourselves collectively with the buy-in that we have. And we have some phenomenal partners in this work. One of the associate chancellors from the Board of Regents, she is always there and she really helps us out. Our Professional Standards Commission, which is outside of the Department of Education. So I'm very, very pleased. And I know that I'm very blessed to have the support and the circle of friendship too, from all these national partners and our local colleges and universities.
So
Go
ahead, Beth.
No, go ahead, Mary. You're up.
So I'm going to ask a question or two in the hopes that those of you who are online, we got started a little late with our survey and our fun activity in the beginning. So we've run out of time almost, but we've got 7 more minutes. And I thought the best thing to do right now would be to ask you questions, Winna and Melissa, if we could. And then maybe if I start, others will feel like they can join in questions that they have about how to get started on work like this, maybe at their institution or in their district. So with that in mind, I'm going to ask, how could others like faculty get started if they don't quite have statewide support? What would you suggest to them to do if they wanted to focus more on induction?
Yeah, that's a great question. We're actually talking about that in our college a lot right now. So I think for me, like the partner piece of that is so key, right? Like who are you going to partner with in this induction program that you're envisioning? And so I think even if it was just starting with one of your partner districts that you had a close relationship with, or you at least, really had identified a really shared need that you were seeing and that the district was seeing and really needed, I would say start with just a district. And I think that's a lot of what with Winna too, and with the pilot, I mean, it was stuff that we had kind of been doing, not in induction, just at pre-service level, but the more it grew, it will start to attract other interest. And I think that's kind of then how then maybe you and that partner district then can apply for some additional funding. And I just think, starting small is okay with this, because sometimes that's just where we have to start. And then I say, are the teachers provided incentive, or is it required as a part of their induction program? That's a great question. Winna, I'll let you take that one.
They are not really provided with a stipend. Again, the extra $100,000 that's awarded to them for coaching outside of the grant funding that is being sent, the grant funding doesn't really flow to the region. So the grant funding pays for the work with, Center on Great Teachers and Leaders and things like that, the lab hours. But out of the coaching funds, we did put that stipends could be used, and a few have used it. We have discouraged that, because are they just going to attend because of the $100 they're going to get? And that if you don't keep that up year after year, it just goes away. So a few have, but we'd rather do this because they want to. But no, they haven't been forced to attend it. Their district might have forced them to attend it, but we didn't, of course, require anybody to attend.
Yeah, we really want this to be a sustainable piece, beyond the expiration of the grant. And so that was one thing that we kind of had in mind as well. But again, that's why we've been pretty pleased with the satisfaction data, because they're not being incentivized to participate. So, and this is happening outside of their regular many special education teacher duties. So.
Beth, do we have time for one more question?
I think so.
Okay, so I'm going to ask this one because, I love the Avatar Lab. How do you get more information about the Avatar Lab?
Sure. I'll put my email in the chat and you're welcome to reach out. And so Avatar is kind of like our KSU, what we coined it at KSU, and we don't even remember what the acronym stands for anymore, but it was something really cool at the time. But so there's a lot of individuals that have, we use the immersion technology through our lab. There's many institutions that also use immersion. And so we are happy to talk more about kind of what we've done with it and some of the ways that we've used it. So feel free to shoot me an email and we can connect.
Dana has one more question. Can we do one more?
Sure.
She said, same, I've used Teach Live on campus and would love to learn more about an option pre-service teachers could use virtually. Yeah.
Yep. It was a game changer, and we started doing it before COVID. And then, a silver lining of the pandemic was that people became a lot more comfortable with Zoom. And so we would never have been able to do this type of project, or it would have been a lot more expensive because we would have had to physically had people like labs all across the state. So this is definitely, there's a lot of utility to use it virtually.
And
Well,
I
thank you.
can see
Oh, go
the
ahead.
benefit of doing this statewide. That's really helpful, I think.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. We have so much food for thought here, and I'm sure a lot of you are going to take this back and see where it applies to you, whether it be in service or in your professional development with teachers. So, and again, that slide before, being intentional, is so important. So we want to thank Melissa and Winna for their time, and hopefully we can get this all bundled up and put somewhere so we can all look at it. It's wonderful. But thank you for joining us. We'll be on next month, March 17th, a Thursday, for simulated interactions, which is very kind of similar to immersion, but in real life, not without using the avatar. So that'll be fun to hear from about that. And that's 2 p.m., 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we sure look forward to seeing everyone there. Thank you so much and have a wonderful week.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to listen to all of this. Just wonderful. I want to thank you.
Thank you, everyone.